Hi, welcome to day 2 in Berlin. Today's vlog's going to be a lot more light-hearted, a lot more like the usual things you're used to seeing. I'm here at the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, site of the 1936 Olympics, Jesse Owens and all that kind of caper. But did you know, in 1937, something very, very different happened on pictures just over there, and that was probably the first and probably the last Germany versus England cricket international. Now, it wasn't strictly speaking an international sort of by ICC standards, didn't exist then anyway, the ICC, but it's a very, very interesting story about how some Germans took up cricket. And I can say as an Englishman, and given what the Germans did to our football team in the latter half of the 20th century, I'm quite glad they never ended up being able to play cricket very, very well. Now, I know a lot of you are from the United States on this vlog, and you're probably trying to work out what on earth cricket is. Well, cricket happened before baseball. Baseball kind of came out of cricket, but cricket's a more refined game, shall we say. We like to stop for lunch and tea. That's very important in the proper form of the game, in the tests. And it used to, up until kind of the end of the Second World War, in fact probably afterwards, there was still an attitude where you had gentlemen players and professional players. Gentlemen players played at the same level as the professional players but never got paid, because it wasn't the thing that a gentleman did. Back to 1937, so a team from Worcester, and you can read about it more in this book, and I'll link to the article below. They came along, they've played, a German team had travelled to England, I think in the early 30s, and the Nazis were keen to encourage any form of physical activity, and they enjoyed cricket, and they thought they would take on an English team, this team from Worcestershire that actually predate Worcestershire County Cricket Club. The gentleman, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but I'll link it below, but they came over here in the playing fields, which I'm trying to find, near the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, and played cricket. So I found a BBC article about the tour here, and I'll link to it below. There's a few things that I remembered from the book when I read it on holiday a few years ago. One sad example is the players giving a Nazi salute as they arrived, but they do say as they got through the tour, given it was 1937 and Nazism was really, really building up here in Berlin, they felt generally uneasy and actually quite glad to get away. They talk about the tour. They said the relationship between the two teams was pretty good, although the British team didn't really like the Berlin captain Gerhard Tamer, who had a little bit of a reputation for punching fielders who dropped catches off his own bowling. I've got to admit, Gerhard, at times I felt similar ways about some of the people who drop catches off my bowling. I've never punched any yet. No. There's also another chapter in here about somebody tagged along to the tour who spoke very, very good fluent German, who they're pretty much certain was a British spy and was basically coming along on the tour to try and find out what was going on in Berlin and then reporting back to his masters in Whitehall. And I just want to finish though with this wonderful thing at the bottom of the article, and I remember now reading it in the book, and it's a very, very touching story. It says that during the Second World War and shortly afterwards, a number of Germans, including an enthusiast Felix Menzel, tried to keep the cricket game alive in Germany. In 1945, along with a few other friends, he emerged from the rubble to challenge a group of extremely surprised British troops to a game of cricket. They played a game of cricket and the British Army team won, but very narrowly. Isn't that a wonderful story? Even if you don't know anything about cricket, I'm sure you can understand. That's a pretty extraordinary game. I could imagine being those British troops having, you know, sort of coming to occupy Berlin, to be approached by some Germans to see if you want to play cricket. It must have been quite a strange experience. So here I'm at Checkpoint Charlie because nothing says USA more than KFC and McDonald's right near a very historical site. But very historic place. Showed you some of the details of what went on here during the Cold War particularly, and the Berlin Wall was basically running along this section here. So we'll find out a little bit more about that in a bit. They're just in the centre of Berlin now. Apparently this is the site of Hitler's bunker where he committed suicide and his body was burnt, and rather poignantly just across from there is the Jewish memorial. This is the Jewish memorial in the centre of Berlin. It's quite an unnerving place. All these concrete slabs. It's open to interpretation really how you view it. Whether you view this as all the different people missing, or you view it as coffins for the people who had no grave, and it's just kind of open. What I found strange is you suddenly see strangers the moment you turn a corner and then they're gone again. So the Brandenburg Gate, one of the symbols of Germany really, Berlin particularly, and also Europe and European history. When you read back over the history of this gate and kind of the role, especially around the time of the Berlin Wall, and of course the famous speeches given on the other side of the wall in the British sector, as was then by Kennedy, Ich bin ein Berliner, Reagan, Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall, and Obama before he became president as well. So very, very famous landmark. And to celebrate the very famous landmark, I need a coffee, and I'm going to go. Now, one of the most famous photographs in history was taken just there in 1945 when the Soviets occupied the Reichstag. Although apparently, a bit like the one on Iwo Jima, it was a retake. They made soldiers go back up the next day and retake the photograph again because they didn't get it right the first time, or nobody took a camera with them, probably more likely than not. Had an amazing time in Berlin. I haven't really touched on yesterday much today because I'm still trying to take it all in. But last night I was thinking about three people in particular. My grandfather, my grandpa, who finished the war 74 years ago just north of here in Kiel. What would he have made of his grandson, who he knew he only died 7 years ago, playing music with an Israeli singer, German musicians in what was the former East Berlin? Then I think of his mother, Evelyn, who 100 years ago would have probably been thinking about her dead husband, Ernest Topping. Wonder what she was going through 100 years ago today. And then I thought of George Forshaw and also William Lounsborough, my two great-grandfathers who fought in the First World War. Wonder what George Forshaw felt 100 years ago as he was still in France caring for the horses. I wonder what William Lounsborough thought as he was on that converted trawler. I wonder what my great-grandchildren will make when maybe they see this video. I wonder what world they will live in. I hope it's as positive and as hopeful, and the world is definitely a better place than it was 100 years ago. Those sacrifices didn't mean nothing. Yes, we still go to wars, I read in that poem last night, but we definitely have moved on, and there is positivity, and there is reasons to be hopeful, and reasons to be cheerful, and reasons to be positive about the future. So as I depart Berlin after my very first trip, I hope it won't be my last, I'm sure it won't be. Dankeschön Berlin, and I'll see you guys in a few more days when I've had time to edit these together, and we'll be back to normal saxophone vlogs. Don't forget to subscribe if you don't already. Check out my last vlog from last night in Berlin here if you haven't seen it already. This is what I was up to this time last year. Please hit that subscribe button, it means the world to me if you do. Thank you very much, bye bye.